mocked up some money from outside India.
Sir, in a previous slide, you have mentioned that a resident in India, he cannot acquire or transfer income. If you have acquired through, as sir said, that lady has acquired an inheritance. Now, if she want to transfer that property, she need to go to RBI for that permission.
As he said, since there is no specific provision under notification, as we have seen in case of inheritance, they will require some approvals. We have seen certain citizens, if they are inheriting the property, they will require approval. Except that there are no restrictions on a person resident in India acquiring the property. Right? The same logic applies. If in case of a doubt, you can approach Reserve Bank of India. The Reserve Bank will allow you, because this is a case of a genuine inheritance where you acquired that property through inheritance from your father. I don't see any difficulty in acquiring those kind of properties.
A branch or a project office of a foreign company can acquire a property. Correct. Now the thing is, it can acquire on the first day, it gets listed as a branch or a.
Once the moment they have approval in hand, project office does not require approval, because in many cases they can set up without RBI approval. But then they have to prove, because what regulation says, it has to be required for the purpose of business. So if that project is going to last very long only, then you can think of buying the property. And then you have to intimate, and then for selling also, Reserve Bank will come into the picture. So it's not that easy. When you file that thing, and if by the time you file those documents, your project is getting over. Right? So this is not an area where some
foreign branch can acquire a
yes.
Are there any restrictions like
Foreign companies?
foreign branch of
Suppose you are having branches in 10 places in India. The foreign banks, the live example is foreign banks. They are operating in India. Many of the banks have not set up subsidiaries in India. They are acquiring the property. But that is required for the purpose of their business. Without that, you cannot acquire the property. So one of the conditions is that it should be required for the purpose of the business.
So there is a general permission given, but at the same time, I think you mentioned that from IPI is supposed to be.
It's only post facto. So having the purchase, it's only an intimation to the
Same
bank.
is for liaison office also? Or
Liaison office cannot buy the property.
Representative office?
Representative will be also liaison office. It should be a place of business in India. So liaison and representatives are not place of business in India. So if there is no business in India, they cannot buy the
For
property.
sale also they have to intimate RBI. For sale also they have to intimate.
Yes.
They can intimate and then sell or sale and then.
Repatriation will require the approval. So you want to remit the money outside India, it can happen only with the approval of RBI. But you can sell the property, but money will not go outside India without RBI approval.
For that business premises.
Yes.
So, can an Indian resident inherit a foreign property from an Indian resident?
Apparently their inheritance, I don't know, by way of will.
Because gift is covered under this point. Inheritance is not mentioned over.
Perhaps there is no bar, but whenever something is not very specifically provided, these are going to be very rare cases. It is advisable that you refer the matter to RBI. RBI in genuine basis is RBI is not like income tax office. We have seen RBI giving approvals in 2 days and 3 days times also. So you can walk in, which nowadays they are not allowing. That is what you should take up with this.
the problem may not be
That,
there. The problem will be in that country where the property is located.
Correct.
They may not allow.
Yes, that could be an issue, but you should walk in, and you should take up with RBI. They are not allowing professionals nowadays to go and represent.
Sir, one cannot take a stand under section 6(4) where there is a general permission that a resident can hold a property or inheritance which is received from a non-resident. In this case, we said when he was that we need to just check out when he is getting an inheritance from a resident, how he would have acquired that property. If that person would have acquired as per the FEMA provision, then very well he could have given inheritance. A resident can inherit a property from another resident.
Okay.
And even for transfer, one can take a shelter under 6(4) that they have given a permission to transfer a property which has been acquired.
Whenever inheritance happens, the first property that is acquired should always be in accordance with FEMA. If there is any violations of FEMA, then
violation, then you can
no action was taken at that time. Action will follow now. So that has to be clear. Now with these completes, as far as individuals are concerned, in property in India and property outside India, as well as property in India by foreign companies for the purpose of business. Now what we are going to talk is a different subject. It is for business. So it's a kind of a real estate developmental activities that would be taking place in India. As we see, because this started somewhere I am not able to recollect, but somewhere in 1988 or 98 it started, because Reserve Bank has taken a very restricted view as far as investment in real estate development activities concerned by NRIs, PIOs is very free. But when it comes to foreign nationals, Reserve Bank is always apprehensive that it could, because our real estate sector is not very well organized. Now we are seeing few big players in the real estate sector. Otherwise it was a very fragmented sector. And the government was always worried that if we allow foreigners to come and do developmental activities, then they will capture. And like what we have seen in the stock market, which is now captured by FIs, then the domestic financial institutions, that could happen. And for that very purpose, Reserve Bank has been very, very slow in opening these real estate developmental sectors for foreign investments. And as we see the conditions, there are such harsh conditions that it could be very difficult for anybody to, a small player, to comply with. So now those ceilings, 5 million and 10 million, they look very small. But then there is a question of that size of the land. Then we see that it is very difficult to get that kind of a land which is available for developmental activities. So when we see this regulation, it sounds very impractical. But whatever it may be, Reserve Bank is, or the Government of India for that reason, is not very keen that foreign players come and capture our real estate segment. It is only because of a lot of pressure happening from World Bank and IMF that maybe this sector is opened in a manner that very few people can take advantage. At the same time, we'll see that if somebody wants to take advantage of the real estate sector, still they have opened a window of opportunity in the form of funding. So through NCDs, now that is opened up. So some players who want to invest in real estate sector and make money, NCD is one area where they can invest into real estate sector. So this will go a little further. Now, as we have seen, there are two routes for investment: automatic route and permission route. There are no difference between automatic route and permission route, except that in case of permission, you have to take approval from FIPB, and having obtained the approval, post approval, you have to follow the same steps as you are going to follow in the automatic route. The moment there is a investment, what I am talking about is the investment into a corporate or any other incorporated entity in India, whereby a foreign person is investing into India. The moment he makes an investment, within 30 days he has to file an intimation with Reserve Bank of India. That is there is an annexure which is an advanced reporting along with a KYC. So there are certain 6-7 particulars you have to provide about that investor. And within 180 days you have to file form FCGPR with Reserve Bank of India. And in case of unlisted entities, it is a DCF valuation. And earlier, even for new entities, Reserve Bank was insisting that you have to go by DCF valuation. But after a lot of representation, they have said that initial capital that is coming by way of subscription to articles and memorandum can come at par. Balance money has to come as under the DCF valuation. As far as state companies is concerned, it is as per the SEBI guidelines. And having invested, you have to file an annual return every year of foreign assets and liabilities by 31st July every year. So these are procedural requirements. I think that will be dealt with in the subsequent session. The governing policy is consolidated FDI policy, which consolidates all the press notes issued earlier. In the last circular, though I have written 1st April 2013, but I have a copy now. It is 17th April 2014 is the last policy that you can download from DIPP website. Apart from that, RBI, so government is only a policy making authority, and government issues the policy in accordance with the industrial policy of the Government of India, which is decided by the Ministry of Industry and Commerce. But the entire regulatory aspect is monitored by the Reserve Bank of India. And there is a notification number 20 Schedule 1 Annexure B, which is updated from time to time in accordance with the policy of Government of India, and then Reserve Bank issues various circulars and notifications. So circulars are called authorized persons. I think Manoj has dealt with those aspects in detail. And the master circulars which consolidate all the circulars issued during the year. Now, except what is stated here, it is free for everyone. So you see here that investors, who are the investors who will require FIPP approval? Here the citizens of Pakistan or entities incorporated in Pakistan can invest, except, so there are certain sectors which are totally prohibited. So except defense, space and atomic energy and other sectors activities prohibited for foreign investments, only upon prior FIPP approval subject to sectoral caps. So earlier there were restrictions, but then we have opened up these sectors even for Pakistanis and Bangladeshis. In Bangladesh recently when Tatas wanted to make investment, they created an issue that unless you allow our people to invest in India, will not allow this Tatas to make investment in Bangladesh. And therefore we modified and we allow those Bangladeshis also to make investment in India. So citizens of Bangladesh and entities incorporated in Bangladesh can invest in all the sectors where FDI is permitted upon prior FIPP approval. So few sectors are restricted, which we opened up for Bangladeshis. Now, which are the activities prohibited? The real estate business is prohibited. So when you say that people are coming here to develop and do business, then what do you mean by restricting the real estate business? But under FEMA, real estate business is a different meaning. So let us read that meaning. Real estate business is dealing in land and immobile property with a view to earning profit or earning income therefrom, and does not include development of townships, construction or residential commercial premises, roads or bridges, educational institutions, recreational facilities, city and regional level infrastructure and townships. So basically, when you set up an entity, you cannot deal in with the ready-made properties. You buy huge property and sell huge property. That is not permissible. What you have to essentially do is the developmental activities. And that's why it says it's a dealing in immobile property with a view to earning profit or earning income therefrom. And it will not include those kind of listed developmental activities. Those foreign companies will not be able to develop or construct farmhouses, and they will not also be entitled to deal in TDRs. Yeah. Which is a sector they are into? I don't see any difficulty. See, if you can prove that it was an excess property, it is not immediately required. So the property was acquired with a view to carry on the business, genuine business activity of the business. But the answer would, in one case it may be yes, in one case it could be no also. That's why I say it will depend on your intentions, for what purpose you have acquired. I don't see, if it is a genuine case, I don't see any difficulty.
I have a similar doubt. Basically, one of our company, Prestige, is planning to set up a JV with a foreign investor. That company is basically going to take a floor on a mall, and then they are going to sublet out that floors to other parties. So the definition which is used in master circular, it uses the term dealing in properties. So then would this, like letting and subletting of that property would also be covered?
So you meant to say you want to buy a mall or a floor in the mall with a view to let, right? That is not permissible. As I said, you cannot buy ready-made property with a view to let it out, earning income out of therefrom. You should be involved into developmental activities. Now in her case, it was a case that the company is involved maybe in a different sector, and that property was acquired for the purpose of the business, genuinely acquired for the purpose of business. I am going with that presumption. and temporarily you have found that to be in excess of your immediate requirements, let it out. So in that case, there is no difficulty. But you are buying a property, which is going to give you a lease. Then even ICICI Bank, let me tell you, ICICI Bank has made a lot of mistakes where initially they have advertised. Actually, when a project at Worli that were jointly taken up with overall builders. At that time, they came out with a scheme where many NRIs have advised that you form a company, buy that property in a company, and then let it out, even to NRIs. And the Reserve Bank has taken a very serious view of that aspect, that you cannot buy a property in the name of a company and let it out. Now, NRIs themselves are directly permitted to buy that property and lease it out. There's no difficulty. So if there's an NRI who wants to buy the entire floor on that mode and lease it out, it's purely permissible, but not to a company. Yeah.
Very specific that about the business
Pardon me?
Access property, access
Yeah.
space.
So we are talking, so of course that aspect will be dealt with in the subsequent session. But if it is a case where foreign investment is permissible, let's take example of IT industry, software, where 100% foreign investment is permissible. An IT company has bought a huge property, right? And they find that business is not going as it was expected, and property like to be vacant for 1 or 2 years. Now that sector, they have no intention, otherwise if they can prove that they have no intention that they will ever let that property to outsiders. But keeping that property idle makes no sense, and for that purpose they have let out that property.
It is permissible?
That is not objectionable if it is something, because nobody is investing with a view to keep that property idle. But as I said, that it should be a genuine case. If somebody is planning acquiring huge property and then letting out, it's not permissible. You are doing small business, 80% of the property you let out and 20% only you are using. It should not be a case like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What about leasing the property? I am into construction development. Can I lease out my infrastructure, whatever infrastructure I create? Is that is also being
No, that I'll come to. That is permissible, because what you have to do is the construct and develop. Nowhere it is said that you are forced to sell. So going by his example, suppose you yourself have developed that property, and then having developed, you can lease it out. There is no restriction on, or there is no compulsion on you to sell off that property.
But how do we challenge when RBI comes up and says that the company needs to modify your memorandum and say that it will not lease, even if it is
No.
into construction and development?
No, if you are some of you were keeping a track of this consolidated FDI policy, if I am not wrong, in 2011, they had used this one jargon, which they said they will not make any income out of that property. Those words have been removed in subsequent FDI policy. And therefore, and the clarifications also that we have shown, they say that once you have developed the property, there is no difficulty in letting out that property. But what say you should be a developer of that property. Right? Then there is no difficulty.
Thank you, sir.
Now, the entities in which you can make FDI, it is a general FDI guidelines that will apply. There are certain relaxations in the FDI policy for NRIs and PIO, that also we'll see. That per se, there are huge ceilings which are applicable, but there are relaxations given to our own people. Now, FDI partnership or proprietorship is concerned only NRIs and PIO can invest. Now, though it is stated that others will require RBI approval, I am not aware either to that any other persons have got RBI approval for investment in partnership or proprietorship. The form of proprietorship concerned with FDI cannot engage in agricultural plantation activities or real estate business or print media sector. Original investment on repatriation basis is possible only with the RBI approval. Even this kind of approvals we have not seen. And current income is freely repatriable after payment of taxes. So if capital is not repatriable, the profit that you make is of course repatriable outside India. Now, as far as FDI and LLP is concerned, it is permissible with prior FIPP approval in sectors where 100% FDI is permissible and no performance related conditions are attached. So real estate sector is one where a lot of conditions are placed. Maybe there is no other sector where this kind of conditions are placed by this FIPP, and therefore this sector FDI per se is not permissible. However, on minute interpretation you will see that those performance related conditions are not applicable to NRIs and PIO. And therefore we have seen that with FIPP has granted some approval to NRIs and PIO to make investment in LNPs. But last week only I saw one notification on a stricter interpretation of that notification which permits FDI and LLP. It has not made any exceptions for NRIs and PIO, but one will have to represent to FIPP that those various performance related conditions are not applicable to NRIs and PIO, and therefore they should be looked at differently as compared to the pure foreign investors.
So,
Yeah.
so as you said, directly a company cannot have into a real estate business. For an example, there is an Indian company which is very well, which is developed in IT parks, industrial park, IT park. The project is under construction. They have developed a full commercial with all the regulatory permission and all. Suppose that project is up to 80% completed. Now there is a foreign investor which is interested in investing in that company, taking over it. So would that be termed as that foreign, it is an FDI in real estate sector, or is it an FDI into an industrial park which will be developed and which will be given, or which will be sold or which will be given on lease?
It is not an FDI. So that also aspect I have dealt with. It is not an FDI. It should be a greenfield project. It should be at the early stage of development that you can enter. 80-90% work is done. You join as a developer. That is not acceptable.
They would not. But then it is not, basically the intention is not to deal into that commercial property. The intention is to develop that IT park and then either sell it or either give
You
it
should
up.
be joining as a developer.
Right from the
You
beginning.
cannot just make a show that you are a developer. So you are entering when 90% or 80% work is done. That's why it is also mentioned in the policy that you should enter at an early stage. It should be a greenfield project and you should enter at the early stage of development. You cannot midway through enter, then 50-60% or 70% work is done, and then you are saying that I am now developer, and with the intention that you only lease it out. That is not permissible. Now FDI in venture capital fund is also permissible. Investors is subject to FDI policy. If the domestic VCF is set up as a trust, this will require FIPP approval. A SEBI registered FVCI can make 100% investment in Indian venture capital undertaking and also set up a domestic AMC to manage the fund, or a domestic venture capital fund registered under the SEBI regulations. SEBI registered FVCI can invest under the FDI scheme as non-resident entity subject to FDI policy and FEMA regulations. So there are foreign funds, they can get it registered with SEBI, and then they can directly invest into FDI compliant projects. Trust other than VCF, any other trust is not permissible to make FDI. Now we are going to see the guidelines. What are the guidelines which are concerning us? So it is the township, housing and built up infrastructure and construction development projects. That is what is permitted under the FDI policy. It will include projects such as housing, commercial premises, hotel, resorts, hospitals, educational institutions, recreation facilities, and city and regional level infrastructure. So these are the projects you can undertake, and I have marked this hotel, resorts, and hospitals in a different color because there are separate guidelines which permit you 100% investment without those conditionalities. So though they are also appearing here, they are separate. Suppose you are actually into the, here we are talking about development of a construction of a hospital building, but suppose you are setting up a hospital, then for the purpose of hospitals, those guidelines which are applicable to real estate sector will not be applicable to development of the hospital or say hotels or resorts. So that aspect has to be borne in mind. Now an issue arises, what do you mean by township? And earlier there were guidelines. If you look at the press note number 2 of that old press note, they prescribe the guidelines of some 2500 acre land. For those, nothing of that sort has been defined. So for the minimum township, you have to look at the local laws of concerned state. In Maharashtra, it is area is maybe specified under Bombay Tenancy and Agricultural Land Act of 1948. In other state, area is maybe notified by the concerned local authorities, because land being a state subject, state will determine what constitutes a township. So there could be different areas prescribed by different states. Now, construction and development projects. Can a company give a land to a builder under development agreement where consideration is received in terms of certain constructed area? So here is a case where you invested in a project and you acquired the land, but you yourself are not developing. Now you are entering into an agreement with a builder who will develop that property, and then builder will give you those constructed areas. So per se, you are not entitled to sell undeveloped land, but this is something which is permissible. This is one of the modes in which actually the activities are happening in India. The landlord, he may not be very conversant with various regulations, could still be an investor in the land, but so long as he is bearing the risk of all those development activities, this is something permissible. Now, what are the mandatory guidelines? That is the minimum area. If you look at those areas, the minimum 10 hectares of land, which is approximately 25 acres. So any company which wants to invite FDI, they should develop at least 10 hectares of land. And if you come to constructed area, it should be minimum of 50,000 square meters. Now in Bombay, I think it would be very rare that you get land of this size. And in case of combination of projects, compliance with any one of these two conditions would be sufficient. So if you are partly developing land and partly, if you meet 10 hectares land of criteria also, it should be sufficient, or you are developing at least 50,000 square meters of area, it is sufficient. Now the issue that arises, what comprises built up area? Whether it is FSI, carpet area or sellable, because earlier we used to see the builders are selling those areas super built up. And in different areas there are different super built up areas. In Vilepalli, they add 100% also on the carpet area. So whether it is a sellable area or the area as per the agreement is something, but everything will depend on the local laws of that state. But basically it should be a sellable area. Does the minimum area need to be contiguous? So there is also, say in Bombay, if you are not able to get one you are buying, say, church gate, another at Ghatkopar, third at Vasai, whether that is permissible, well, I think that may not be permissible. But if it constitutes a part of a big project, maybe you need to, and in case of any doubt, you are always free to approach FIPB for their clearance. Is there any, when you have this kind of a slightly doubtful area, whether there is a requirement to have a master plan approved? So when you bought a land of 10 hectares, but whether you need to have a master plan and get it approved, it's one issue which one will have to really test. But I think so long as you fulfill basic criteria of 10,000 hectares land or a 50,000 hectare area, I think there is no need that so long as that land is capable of constructing that size of the project, because ultimately FEMA compliance is the responsibility of the company which is receiving FDI. So if there are any violations are happening, it is the company which will have to pay the price. So one has to be extremely careful to see that they comply with these guidelines. So coming to minimum capitalization for wholly owned subsidiary, their investment of $10 million, and for JVs with a resident in India, it is $5 million. And there were certain tax angles also while fixing this kind of a ceiling, because they feared that it was rampant use of unofficial money prevalent in real estate sector. And government was really concerned that if they don't keep this kind of a criteria for land development, it is possible that money may come back through round tripping in some manner, that money may be channelized. And that was one of the reasons why they kept some stringent conditions, so that everybody cannot use this route to just whitewash or change the color of their money. That is also one of the reasons. the funds of 5 million or 10 million, as the case may be, should be